Greetings, beautiful people. Happy 2026. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it. We made it. Yes, it's January 2nd. We made it through 2025. Praise God for His grace, for His mercy. And now we're starting a new year. Every year I come up with a slogan. Last year, the slogan for 2025 was 2025. We are going to thrive. And we did. We had a great year. Praise God. One of the things that I want to emphasize, and I've talked about this so much on this podcast, is you must be intentional about creating good memories for yourself. You must be intentional about creating good memories for yourself. Once you take full and sole responsibility for your life, and you understand that the state of your life is not determined by some outside force, that you determine the quality of your life. Once you really fully embrace that, that is when your life has the possibility of getting better and being the best it could ever be. And it's never too late. I got these lessons late in life, but praise God, it is never too late. So this year, 2026, the slogan for this year is going to be 2026, everything will be fixed. I'll say it again, 2026, everything will be fixed. Your life is going to be fixed. Whatever is broken will be repaired. Whatever is lost shall be found. Whatever it is you need, believe this is the year that God is going to move and He is going to fix broken things. So again, my blessings to you. May you have a year filled with abundant blessings and good memories. And so I want to this is my second attempt, y'all. I don't know what happened to the first episode. Don't ask me. But I want to talk about gratitude, discernment, rest, introspection, and of course, hope. Those are great things to take into the new year. So let's get started. I hope each of you is well, and we're going to get started with this podcast. And thank you so much for joining me today. Let's talk about gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most essential elements to have a beautiful life. When you are grateful, and nobody's life is perfect. We all have different challenges and struggles, and there's always something that we want we don't have. There's life just isn't perfect. However, life can still be very beautiful when you learn how to count your blessings, when we learn how to think about and meditate on the things that we have rather than the things that we don't have, when we learn how to be grateful for the Most High God who hears our prayers and who will give us direction, who will give us answers, who can heal our hearts, who can show us things. When we are grateful, we are able to feel better about life and what we're going through. And therefore, we're able to endure, and we're able to see the good in everything, see the treasure in the trouble, see the purpose for the pain. There are just so many things. During the break, I had a very interesting winter break. It's time to go back to work, on Monday, but I was sick, and I was telling a friend, I don't know if I had ever been that sick in my life. I'm like, okay, God, I know I got to get sick sometimes. People get sick, but I have been, through God's grace and mercy, I've been a very healthy person, and I haven't really gotten sick. These last couple of years, though, whatever has been going around, some kind of way I managed to get it, and I normally didn't do that. Like some kind of way I would be exempt. So it did make me think a lot about maybe some changes, being more careful about wearing a mask or using sanitizer. I don't know what I got to do, but I did a lot of prayer about that. But while I was sick, there was a point when I had to take authority, and because I sometimes you don't know if you're just going through the flu because it's going around, or you're going through whatever, or if it is some kind of a spiritual attack. I wasn't sure, but I just started praying and taking authority. But then there was a moment when I was just sort of grateful, because I know this is going to sound crazy, but if I hadn't been sick, I wouldn't be resting. I had all these plans. I was going to do A, B, C, D, all the way up to Z during the break, and I didn't do any of those things. And I was forced to rest. And what I kept thinking about was the fact that I could be sick, that I did have a bed, that I did have tissue, that I had comforters, that I had love, I had prayers, I had food, I had everything I needed, and I could recover. That experience, just taught me so much, and so I am so grateful to know that God is a healer, because again, there was a point when I was like, no, I'm not gonna be this sick. This has got in. So I had to remember the story of Jesus, that he healed all manner of disease and sickness. And I took spiritual authority and said, enough is enough. There were some other things I did, because sometimes, again, you don't know if you're just going through the normal things of life, because sickness is a part of life. Most people get sick at some point in their lives. Or I started to feel like maybe this might have been spiritual, and there were some things that I needed to do. And so we did those things. And, my daughter agreed, like, Mom, I can't believe won't get into it right now. But nevertheless, we handled that spiritually too. And as soon as I got rid of some stuff and did some things, it seemed like a dark veil was just evaporated from around me. This Christmas we did something we've never done before. Like, I mean, my entire life. I'm 60 years old. We went out to eat dinner for Christmas, and I was sick, and I was about 70% at that time, maybe 70, 75%, somewhere along that line. We went out. It was absolutely beautiful. And it was good to get some fresh air. And then later, a few days later, I did go out again. But what you learn is to be grateful. That's the whole point. And here's a great quote: gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. Marcus Cicero said that you got to be grateful. When you count your blessings, I could just make a long list of things that I think I need. That I can make a long list of things that I want to do, and I don't maybe feel like I have the finances to do them, but I'm so blessed for in so many ways. And learn how to count your blessings, learn how to thank God, show gratitude by not taking things for granted, especially people. Don't take Do not take people for granted. Don't take anything for granted. I never do. And learn how to thank God for people, for things, for situations. Just learn how to look at your life and see what is good and be so grateful for it. My mother used to say something, and when I would hear this sometimes, I used to think, well, she was just trying to trivialize or minimize like a bad situation. But really, what she said was powerful when she would say, it could always be worse. And it's so true. It could always be worse. Like when I was sick, it could have been 1,000 times worse. And so I'm just so grateful. And I want you to go into 2026 with me with a heart filled with gratitude. Whatever you got going on, be grateful. I've kept a gratitude journal. My daughter's 35. I've kept a gratitude journal for like over 30 years. And what I do is I just try to, and I don't do it daily, but it probably at least once a week. Sometimes I'll do it more, but at least once a week, I just kind of write down like special blessings. And that's another thing about our blessings. There's so much that the Most High God does for us that we do not see. There are physical blessings that we see, but there are also so many spiritual blessings. There are things that we're protected from that we don't see. There's so much there. And so I have learned to write things down. And then at the end of the year, I will go through my gratitude journal and I'll kind of look over those special moments. 2025 was a beautiful year for me. We did a lot of beautiful things. And that's because of the grace and mercy of God. And I experienced a lot of great things, created a lot of good memories. And again, I want you to encourage you to do the same thing. Take authority over your life. Take authority over your life. It is your life. Now, of course, in everybody's life, there are some things we cannot control, but focus and concentrate on the things that you can control. And if you have to let go of people, sometimes when we think about purging our lives, taking inventory, I think most people's lives are jacked up because they either have positive people around them or toxic people around them. Y'all, and I'm going to talk about it, but I just finished the Sean Combs documentary on Netflix. It is worth seeing. There's so many life lessons there. It's such a cautionary tale from so many different perspectives. And if your life is going to be good or going to be bad, it's probably connected to a person. And so you have to have, sometimes it's easy to let people go. Sometimes it's not, depending on who the people are and how you are as a person and what you think. But for me, I'm at a place in my life where if you are going to be negative and just not going to, and you're intentional and malicious with it, I know we all make mistakes. I know people are not perfect. I am not perfect. I am so far from perfect. But when I feel like a person is doing something malicious and they're being irresponsible with what they're doing and what they're saying, and they are fully grown, because I don't deal with children. I'm a teacher, but outside of teaching, I don't deal with children. So everybody that I'm around is an adult, and they can be responsible for what they say and do. I have learned how to let people go. I don't hate anybody. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just not going to deal with it, because let me just be honest with you, quite frank. If you look at the news, if you're a doom scroller like me and you look at the news, every day people are being killed. And it's domestic situations. In other words, they are dealing with people, and those people have issues, and you can't solve other people's issues. I saw, for the first time ever, I watched an episode of First 48. I don't know when this episode aired. I forgot. I didn't even look at the date. But basically, in a nutshell, there's this guy. He ended up killing two people. He ended up killing a so-called friend, and he killed the friend's brother. And do you know why he killed them? And y'all, sometimes you just like, okay, it exists, but when you see it up close and personal, you're shocked. It was all because of jealousy. Basically, his friend had the life that he wanted. He could have had the same life too, with a different set of choices. And again, gratitude, introspection, the things I'm going to talk about. If he had just made some different decisions, he would have had the same life that his friend had. He basically shot and killed his friend, and because his friend's brother was there, he killed the friend's brother. And that's why I don't deal with toxic people. During my illness, I had a very interesting experience, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share it on the podcast or not, but I am. Just a life lesson. So before I got sick, a friend of mine, a former friend, had asked me to take her to a doctor's appointment. I agreed. I was glad to help. I'm one of those people, like, God, give me an opportunity to, show your light and your love through me. So I was willing to do it. Of course, I was not planning on being sick. I did not want to be sick. That was the sickest I've ever been in my life. And I got sick. And at first, what I was going to do was I was like, okay, I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to spray down the car. I'm going to still go try to do this. And so I kind of waited to tell her that I was sick, because I was like, I'm going to still do it. But I was weak. I actually had no strength. I was just weakened, and I couldn't move, and I was constantly coughing and sneezing and all of that. So I made the decision. It was very painful to just let her know, look, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to get you to that appointment. Well, you would think, and I'm telling her in my text message that I am weak and I'm in pain and I'm very, very sick. So you would think that this is a fully grown adult person. She probably would say, okay, I'm so sorry to hear that, and that would be it. No. There was a point where she texted me a very nasty message. And it kind of was about by me canceling and not being able to get her appointment, how inconvenient it was for her, and she was going to have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I saw that text message and I was so sick again, I didn't respond. And I have a new thing and I want to recommend this. Whenever someone says something to me and I feel like it's disrespectful or it's negative, what I've learned to do that I have to do, I don't always do it, but I should do it. I've learned to pause. I've learned to not say anything. Just don't say anything for a minute. And mind you, I'm sick, so I can't really be, texting and talking or anything. My daughter felt like I should have called her, and I wanted to call her, but I was like, I'm gonna just be coughing, and it's just easier for me to just text the message. So I blocked her immediately after I got that little message. She tried to be positive at the end, but it was very cold. The first thing she did when I first texted her and said, I'm so sorry, I'm not gonna be able to make it. She texted me, could I get someone to do it for me? And I'm thinking, I'm sick. I can't arrange. I can't be calling people, and then I don't know anybody. We don't have any mutual friends. So like that, we may have had some mutual coworkers, but these are not people that we both know. So anyway, I was kind of shocked by that because I'm like, I'm sick. I can arrange, again, y'all got to understand, I was devastated. I really tried to. I was still going to try to do it, even though I had the flu. I think it was a flu. And I was still going to try to do it. Make a long story short, I waited for a couple of hours. I blocked her at first, and I waited a couple of hours, and I then just unblocked her to text her back and just say, I'm really saddened that nobody, not a single person, can get you to your appointment. Not a family member, not a friend. And I let her know I was very saddened that she texted me after I had already told her that I was very sick, I was in pain, I was weak, I was in bad shape. Immediately after I text this, she texts me a message and says, "Oh, no worries, that family members are going to step in." Mind you, she didn't text me this earlier. Hours have passed. She didn't alert me and say, "Hey, family members are going to take care of it." So after that, I just ended up blocking her, and there was already some issues before this incident happened. There were already some things that I had concerned about, and again, because I've seen so many stories where people end up getting killed, and I know that's extreme from dealing with people who have mental health issues, just personal problems, whatever their problems are. I've seen bad things happen. And so I don't play with that. I'm one of those people, like, I just don't play with it. I can tell when people are trying to have good character and they're trying to be good people. And at a certain point, I know we're human and we all fall short. But there are just certain things you cannot do. At a certain point, you're a certain age, you know better, you can't do those things. And if you do, that's fine, but there are consequences of that. And I love this quote that I've heard where people will say something like, you can make the choice, you can make your own choice, but you can't determine the response. You can't determine the outcome. And that's the thing when it comes to relationships. People can make choices to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, what they cannot control is how that person is going to respond. Again, I'm a person, I believe that you don't have to be mad at people. I don't think the person is a bad person. You don't have to be mad. You don't have to think the person is a bad person. You can forgive. But I'm telling you right now, if you look at the news, you don't need to take my word for it. Every day, people are killed in domestic situations because you're dealing with people who don't have healthy minds. I do bad thought therapy because I understand that thoughts are what lead to everything. Everything you do, everything you say, every value you have, it first starts with a thought. And there are people that never tend to their thoughts. They may work out, they may go to the gym, they may run, they may get into the physical. They may do all these things, but they don't tend to their thoughts. And it doesn't matter what age, because I deal with teenagers. I'm a teacher. I deal with adult people, and I've known people And the entire time that I've known them, they are exactly the same. Their minds, their thoughts have never changed. They don't, because they've never tried to. They've never wanted to. Maybe they didn't feel like they needed to. And that's fine, but they have to accept that everybody is not going to deal with them because of that, because people do end up being, as a term they use now, is unalive. So you got to make a decision. If you want a good life, what you're going to find is that you have a very small circle of people. And I'm not a hang out with people kind of person. I have people that I talk to. I just, had a beautiful conversation with one of my former students' parents, a lady that we became very close over the years, very positive. She's little bit older than I am. And I really appreciate her. I get a lot of wisdom from her, a lot of life from her. Like, I'm one of those people, I talk to people like that, and I have those conversations. And then, if we get together, we get together. I want to help her do something, but I'm not a hangout kind of person. And I've learned that you got to be really careful about who you let in your inner circle. But going back to gratitude, take gratitude into 2026 with you. I'm telling you, I don't care how bad it is. I was sick and I started to think about the fact, well, I'm home. I have my tissue. I have access to a hot shower. I just started counting my blessings and praising God in advance for my healing. And I am about 90%. I'm still not 100%, but I give God all the praise and all the glory for the fact that I could be sick and that I could be off, and that even if I had to take off, I could take off if I had to, if it's that, if I felt like it was that bad. So just want to put that out there. And so that's one of the things I want to talk about: gratitude. Take it with you. Be grateful every single day. Don't take people for granted. Don't take good experiences and circumstances for granted. Gratitude is that spice. It's like the salt of life. You take gratitude with you, you will see your life will be so much better. Just a few words on discernment. Discernment is such a critical skill to have. And I'm talking about this a little bit because I was on YouTube and I use, what I see sometimes on social media and YouTube as, sort of like a stepping stone or springboard, excuse me, to talk about different topics. And there was a story about a woman who had gone viral for a while. And it had to do with Beyonce. I don't want to get into all the details because I don't know much about her and I'm really not trying to talk about her. But the conversation came up and comes up a lot about this thing called false prophets or fake ministers. Like, how do you know if someone is a false prophet or fake minister? And the person that I was listening to, and I didn't listen to the whole thing, he was basically saying she was a false prophet. If you listened to her, if you followed her, then you were going to hell, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm very reluctant to judge a person as a false prophet or as a fake minister. I will say this, and I want to share this with you. It First of all, the focus is always on the wrong thing because it's not on the person who is in the forefront, it's about their followers. You cannot have a platform if you don't have followers. You cannot have a ministry. I mean, you could have a ministry, but if you don't have anybody that is participating in your ministry, that ministry does not have the same effect as it does if you do have people that follow you. So sometimes people are focused on the minister. What I always focus on is, how do you get people to sit up under your teaching and follow you? But I want to go back to why I don't call people false prophets and what I do to discern whether or not I'm going to listen to that person. So one of the things is very simple. If you are a person and you are actively trying to strengthen your relationship with the Most High God, God is real, and God does use people. to help us to get closer to Him and strengthen our relationship with Him. Now, you have to have a relationship for yourself and real intimacy when there's nobody between you and God. But God does use teachers, and He does use people in ministry to help us and to grow and to learn. And I've been so grateful for some of those people. But I simply make a choice that if the person is not talking about God, I'm not listening to them. I don't need to know if that person is a quote unquote false prophet or fake minister. What I do is I listen to what is that person talking about? Because what is in a person's mind and what is in their heart is going to come out of what? Their mouths. When I want to know what a person is thinking and when I want to know the character of a person, all I have to do is let that person talk. And if a minister or someone who identifies as a minister is not talking about Jesus, they're not sharing anything with people that will help them be elevated spiritually and get closer to God, if they are directing people to them and to people, if they're focused on people and not God and not Jesus, that's how you can you should make a decision that I'm not going to listen to them. If they're a false prophet or not, that's between them and God. But stop listening to people if they're not doing anything to edify your spirit. Now, what's deep is that there's one particular minister, and I will not say his name, for years. I mean, I'm talking about when he first came on the scene on TV 30 years ago. I tried to listen to the brother. Like, I would sit there and I would listen, and I could see that he was very charismatic. And at that time, he might start the lesson, he might be teaching a lesson, but then some kind of way, no matter what, the lesson would always end up being about money. And he had this thing where if you didn't tithe and you didn't give money to his church, because you're not giving money to God, you're giving it to the church. If you didn't tithe and you didn't give money to the church, his whole thing was you weren't going to be blessed. You weren't going to experience anything good from God. You weren't going to be healed. Just a lot of things like that. And this is something that this minister would say over and over again. I marveled because I knew people personally who sat up under that ministry, and I just sort of marveled that they could listen to that. It wasn't about him because he is a single person just sharing whatever is in his heart and mind to share. My thing is, how could you listen to that? Because even if a person starts off maybe a good lesson, about something that you need, when it ends up to, at the end, always ended up with something about tithing and offering and money, I'm trying to figure out what does that have to do? How does that help you have a strong relationship with God? He was teaching lies. Recently, like 2 years ago or last year, he came out and said, no, you don't have to tithe. Now, mind you, this is a person that supposedly studied the Bible, read the Bible, a minister, supposed to be a man of God. He comes out and says he didn't know after 30 something years that you didn't have to tithe. So, but people sat up under that ministry. Now, one person I know that had been under his ministry for years, they did eventually leave. But my point is that when you want to discern if somebody is what a person is all about, not even ministers, but just in general, if you want to know what's in a person's heart, listen to what they are saying to you and don't dismiss what they're saying. If they're talking about a particular topic, that's what's in their heart and mind. Whatever they're constantly talking about, that's what they are most focused on. That is what they value. And your discernment comes is that what you're about? Because I know for me, if a woman is not talking about, if I'm going to listen to ministry, and I do, and they're not talking about God, it's hard for me to listen. But I can't judge them, and I can't say, oh, they're fake, or you got the situation now where you've had several ministers in the news. Usually it is for sexual deviation and perversion, but you also have these issues with ministers and money. You had a couple of big incidents where, the minister wouldn't let the people leave or do something without getting the money. I have been in a situation like that myself, live. I'll never forget as long as I live. This was about 30 years ago, and I had visited this church, and I guess the man needed a certain amount of money, and he wasn't letting people go, and he was calling people out. There was no, and the man, I believe he had I believe he was a wizard, actually, to be quite frank. He kind of put like a evil curse on people, like if you left, you're gonna be cursed, you're gonna be this and that. And he was really strong with his darkness. But nevertheless, I endured that. I never went back. And again, I can't say that was a false minister. What I can say, I would never go back and I would never listen to him. I was shocked that anybody can sit up under the ministry. And I've never, this is another thing that's very fascinating, is where people feel like they owe the minister something. Like you're supposed to, no, you don't. You belong to God. And if they're in ministry and they're not promoting a relationship with God or how to get close to God or how to be a better human being through God, with God, then it's not real. And you don't owe them anything. You can simply get up and leave. You can leave the church. You can leave that service. You don't have to sit there and participate in it. That is what blows my mind. So when it comes to discernment, I see some of the shenanigans that people do, and I just look at it and I say, wow, I mean, those are some brave people. Because one thing I don't believe in is playing with God. You can play chess, you can play football, basketball, golf, but do not play with the Lord. And there are people, that's what it seems like. I mean, again, discernment, it seems like they are playing with God. And that is a very dangerous, I think, thing to do. But in terms of you, understand you are not obligated to sit under any ministry if they are not empowering you to have a better relationship with God. That's the whole purpose of ministry, really. I do understand the money factor. I get that a church has bills, they have to pay for the place. They've got to pay for lights. They've got to pay for water. They've got to pay for lawn care. They've got to pay for maintenance. They have people on staff. I get it that it takes money and sometimes a lot of money to run a ministry. There are a lot of expenses that go with running the ministry. And when I give, I'm going to give from my heart because I want that ministry to keep going. I want to have an edifice to go to, even though I usually physically don't go to church the way I used to. I can get it online. I want that church to still exist. So when I give, I'm giving from my heart because I believe that this ministry is doing things to empower people to have a better relationship with God. I know my church even I know that my church even has like vans and stuff where they go to the train station and they pick up elderly people who don't drive, or they pick up people who don't have cars. They may even drive around in the neighborhood, I'm not sure, but that costs a lot of money. So when you give, and you use your discernment and you're trying to decide, okay, I want to give my money to ministry, the question is, what is that ministry doing? And that's why when I give from my heart. I know where my money is going. I know what it's being used for. I can see it, and I'm free. And I wish I could do more. And so that's how you have discernment. It's not that deep. If somebody is talking, and that's another interesting thing, that I have seen clips of people talking more about people than Jesus. Like, they're talking about Beyonce, or they're talking about this person or that person. But usually Beyonce, she was in she was in a lot of pulpits the last year or so, and I marvel. Like, you would spend all your time talking about Beyonce, and you wouldn't just talk about Jesus and teach people how to get closer to Jesus. And then you have people that talk about other ministers. You've got, that's a new fascinating thing where some people's social media platforms are basically built on I'm just going to talk about ministers. I'm going to critique what they do. If it's fake, is it real, and blah. And then, and what's so sad, what is so sad, that many of them, because they don't understand how to use the Bible, they're using the Bible as their, I guess, their litmus test. And because they're using the Bible the wrong way, they're wrong. So it's just really messed up. The bottom line is, what we put in us is what is in us, and that's the only thing that can come out. It is critical that we listen to people share things that are going to edify us spiritually. The way you will know if these people, who to listen to, is very simple. What are they talking about? If they're talking about God, if they're talking about having a relationship with God, how to build a relationship, how to sustain a relationship with God or Jesus Christ, that's how you know they are real. And if they are not doing that, you don't have to hate on them. You really don't have to talk about them. You don't have to think that they're false. Let God, judge that. Jesus said that God will separate the goat from the sheep, the wheat from the tares. Like, God will do that. What you do is you pay attention. Whenever I'm talking to a person, I pay attention to what they're saying, and I automatically know what that person is about. And over the years as an adult, you'd be amazed at the things that have come out of people's mouths. That's kind of how I started bad thought therapy, actually. And some of it's very quite disturbing. And you get to know, okay, this is what this person is really focused on. And ladies, when it comes to relationships, pay attention to what a person is saying. That's why, instead of just giving your body to a person, try to get to know a person, talk to a person, and you won't be surprised, probably, but you will know exactly what's on that person's mind, because at some point he will say what is in his heart. It's going to come out what he's focused on concerning you, or what you have or don't have, that kind of thing. So that is my little short message on discernment 2026. Let's talk about rest. Whew, my goodness, you gotta rest. You guys, we must rest. You know, I was sick also during the Thanksgiving break. I was like, okay, God, what's going on? Because again, I'm one of those people. You have to stop me. I will not stop. I will not rest. So I looked at it as, okay, God, you wanted me to rest, and because I was not up to par, I was forced to rest. But now, what I realized going into the year, I just have to rest. I don't care. Don't let anybody guilt. Another thing I want to say is, because a lot of people can't rest, because also they are guilt tripped if they sleep, stay in bed and they don't get out of bed. If they take a nap, and God knows, for someone like me, I work, during the school year. My days are probably 10-hour days. I used to get up at 5. I used to leave the school maybe 5 or 6. So that's what, 12 hours already. So I done already lied, right? Then when I come home, sometimes I would work. And I've worked on the weekends. And so I've learned I don't have to feel guilty if I decide not to get out of bed. If it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I stay in bed, or when we're off, I can stay in bed. I catch up on as much rest as I can, and don't feel bad about that. The only time your body can fully repair and heal is when you get what is called REM, like you're getting deep sleep. And so you can't, if you're in a situation where you can't rest, my heart grieves for you. You got to create another situation. And I know that there are people, they're like that. And my daughter and I, we talk about this all the time, where we know people and you can't take a nap. If you take a nap, if you get sleep, it's like you're lazy. I've been in situations, I've had seasons in my life where I could not take a nap. And I mean, we're talking about when I was working, same thing. I'm a teacher and I'm getting up early and I'm working all day and I'm dealing with stress. I could not even take a nap, y'all. So this is why I don't deal with certain people. I work hard, so I don't have to be in a position where I cannot take a nap. So, but I want to just let you know, rest is critical for your health. You cannot be healthy if you're not getting deep sleep. And we really need at least 8 hours and 9 hours. Don't let anybody fool you. You need deep, long sleep in order to have optimal health. And so I just want to encourage you to get rest. Don't feel guilty about it. You don't have to explain yourself. If they don't get it, they'll find out because your body will let you know you haven't been resting, you haven't been drinking enough water, you haven't been doing the things that you need to do. And a lot of times, what I found, and it's so sad, that the people that are criticizing you are the ones that can at least afford to not get rest. It's like the people who are criticizing you for drinking water and getting sleep, those are the people that end up going through, a health crisis, and they're criticizing you. And I think, wow, this is so ironic. Get some rest, and don't let anybody make you feel bad. If you want to stay in bed for the whole day and rest your body, stay in bed for the whole day. You need that rest in order for your body to be its best. Now that rhymed. I wasn't trying to. Two more things. All right, y'all. I'm still dealing with a little bit. I want to talk about introspection a little bit, and for 2026. I watched as I mentioned before, the documentary on Sean Combs. Sean Combs, The Reckoning is what it's called. Very, it was an expose and very eye opening. Not necessarily surprising because there are some aspects to human nature and we forget about, certain situations. All humans can have the potential to end up being like Sean Combs and doing some of the evil things that he's accused of doing. But I think I'm a person, I'm very hopeful. And I do think that all people, and I know this is hard for some people to accept, but I do believe that people have the potential to change. I do think that people have the potential to be better, but they have to be introspective. They have to look within. Part of your resting, going back to rest, because introspection does tie into the rest, is so critical for you to take time daily, actually, where you are by yourself and you're not doing anything and you're thinking about what you're thinking about and you're looking within yourself and you're assessing yourself. We spend a lot of time, and I did this at some point in my life, where I would be fixated on other people and what they did or didn't do, it, that kind of thing. And what I found is that doing that made me a victim. It made me powerless. It made me in a subservient position because all my power, or so I thought, or all, what I could do and not do and how I was feeling was determined by somebody else. When I took authority of my life and I understood that everything was going to be determined by me, it doesn't matter what a person does because I can't control what other people think, what they say, what they do. I have no control over that. But I can control how I respond. I can control my values, my thoughts, my actions, my words. I can determine what I'm going to believe and not believe. But it all started with me thinking about myself. And I've shared the story like when I was in my early 50s. I think it was around that time I went through what I called a midlife awakening. I don't know what it was. I just started thinking about my life and, the past, and particularly one relationship that had taken a lot of spiritual energy out of me, and a lot of a lot of bad things had happened. And I was dealing with that. I was being introspective. I started thinking about it. And at first, I sort of got fixated on another person, like just the evil that they did to me and how I took it. And then, that's when it really got crazy when I started thinking, no, they never put a gun to my head. They never put a knife to my throat. I took this. I let a person treat me like I was dirt. So I went through that phase. But then, and that's when my life changed, when I took full authority and I start saying, no, they did that because I let them do that. There's an old saying, and you hear this all the time, you teach people how to treat you. And it's so true. That is so true. That's so powerful. If you let people treat you like you're dirt, most likely they will treat you like dirt. Like going back to the Sean Combs case, It's a very interesting documentary because a lot of the people, they were victims of Sean Combs's actions. However, they took it. See, at any point they could have said, I'm gonna find another way. And really what I've learned, now this is just my personal experience and I don't know if it's different for anybody else, but I've learned that when you accept bad behavior, you really help, you enable people to be bad, because what happens is they get conditioned to believe that they can do what they're doing and there are no consequences. And you don't owe anybody any explanation. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to try to, you have to make a decision to let toxic people go. And there are other things in your life, and even sometimes we're our worst enemy. That's why introspection and looking at yourself and thinking about what is going on inside. Introspection simply means looking within, looking within, thinking about what you're thinking about, assessing your thoughts, evaluating, determining the value of your own thoughts. And because those thoughts lead to action, those thoughts lead to what you're going to say, what is going to come out of your mouth. And so I believe that every single day of your life, this 2026, it's a new year, you got to take time for introspection. And you have to take full ownership and responsibility for your life. The reason why Sean Combs was not found guilty of a lot of the things that people allege was because, and they at the end of this documentary, spoiler alert, the jurors at the end spoke a little bit, and basically they were saying these were adult people and they were consenting, and they actually were telling the truth. Like, you could make a decision once you saw the darkness. You could, and I know it's sometimes easier said than done, but it has to be done. You can make a decision, say, I'm not participating. I'm simply not going to participate. I'm going to get out. I'm going to do something else. And this one guy, and I didn't even know that Bad Boy Entertainment had a co-founder, and I can't think of the guy's name right now. His story, he was the most compelling witness to me, and I believe the things that he said. He went through a lot. The bottom line is, though, he would have been better off when he first saw the different things that Combs was doing. He would have been better off just saying, you know what, I resign. Peace and blessings to you. I wish you the best. I'm going to go on and try to do something else and leave town. I know that's hard. I know that's not easy to do, but he would have been much better off, because now what he has to deal with is, he mentioned that he had been homeless. He's obviously had a lot of bad memories. There's a lot of sexual deviation in Sean Combs' world. And so people were drugged, their bodies were violated. There was a lot of evil going on, just pure debauchery, just evil stuff. Um, and some of that was out without people's consent, but a lot of it was people were trying to, this was their job. They probably thought they were going to make a lot of money. Maybe they were making some money, but it's not worth it. It's just, I'm telling you, it is not worth it. Your peace has no price tag on it. Let me tell you, once you experience peace, you simply cannot deal with chaos. And unfortunately, a lot of these people, they endured. And in the end, they got nothing. And you know what's getting ready to happen? Combs is going to get out of prison soon. And he's probably going to be richer than he was before. It doesn't seem like, I asked my daughter, I said, well, you think somebody would try to take him out? Because people get afraid, because this guy, he did a lot of evil stuff. And she said, Mom, if they didn't try to take him out now, they're not going to take him out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's over. So he may come out of prison and live and make just as much money as he made before. There are a lot of lawsuits that are pending, but the people endured. And so when you're in your introspection, what's going to happen is you're going to see things the way they really are. You're not going to see things the way you think that you want them to be. You're not going to see them as in your dream. You're going to, when you take time to get quiet, you turn off everything, you isolate yourself, and you get in that quiet place, and you engage in introspection, and it is with the Most High God. It is when you are with God and you are seeking Him and you're asking Him to search you and to search your heart. What's going to happen is you're going to see things as they are. And I know it takes courage. You have to have the courage to say, no, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm not going here. I'm not going there. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. This same person that I mentioned earlier about the doctor's appointment, her husband had died. And before her husband died, she did something that she had never done before. I'd known her for about 2 decades. She wanted to meet up with me. And it was odd because it was just like there was a sense of urgency for her to meet up with me. And she kept wanting to meet up with me. And I just did not feel comfortable. And I don't know why. I told my daughter, I said, I don't know why, but something isn't right. I don't feel right. And I didn't override that. I don't override those things anymore because I've been there where I have overridden. Really, it's the Holy Spirit telling you not to do something. You don't have to understand it. When you don't feel comfortable, like I told you, I was sick. I didn't know if that was a spiritual attack. And at some point, a particular person came to my mind, and I thought about some things that had happened and that was done. And I said, you know what? With all these pauses, I hope this episode turns out right. But I thought about some things that had been done, and I was like, you know what? I'm not. I'm gonna let this go. So I had to get rid of some stuff, and I just didn't. And I felt free. Like I don't have to question myself anymore. Once I go into my introspection and I go into my prayer and I talk to the Most High God, and whatever I feel like the Holy Spirit is telling me, I accept that. I accept that this is the way it is, and I'm letting go. And I know sometimes it's not easy, but you have to do it. You have to be able to let things go. And I'm going to talk about the documentary more in depth because it's a great cautionary tale. And one of the things is don't go along when you see evil, run away from it. Don't walk away from it, run away from it. I'm going to say that again. When you see evil, do not walk away, run away, get away. And you don't have to try to understand it. You don't have to try to, you know, justify it or change it. You just need to get away because all of those people who stayed and kind of dealt with Sean Combs now, they're survivors, but they dealing with bad memories. They lost a lot of money. They lost a lot of time. Prayerfully, they can recover with the grace of Jesus Christ, but that's not easy to do. And so you can avoid that. So I just want to say that, and I want to leave with this. One more little thing is hope. Keep hope alive. I'm going to say it again. Keep hope. I'm going to keep hope alive because sometimes it's very easy and you can just sort of like, oh, yeah, I just don't see anything changing, or, oh, I've waited too late to pursue this dream or this goal. No. No, you must keep hope alive. God is hope, and hope is in itself is such a beautiful thing. And it doesn't mean you don't act. Faith without work is dead. It doesn't mean that you don't take some kind of step, but what it means is that you believe that things can get better and they will get better, and always keep hope alive. I've discovered something, you guys. You may already know about this show, but I just discovered it on the road with Steve Hartman. My goodness, I plan on showing an episode to my students every single day as a part of their social emotional learning. But I was on Facebook and I kept seeing these little episodes pop up on the road with CBS, Steve Hartman. And basically, and I'm going to put a link to one of the shows in the description box so you can see it too. They're basically good people stories. It's just about people doing beautiful, good things in the world. Y'all, there is so much beauty. And it gave me so much more hope. Like, oh, the world is, you hear all this bad stuff, but no, every single day, thousands and thousands of good things are happening. And you don't want to ever lose sight of that because that is what keeps the hope in you, keeps that hope glowing and shining. So 2026, I just want to say, keep hope alive. Again, don't forget the slogan for this year is 2026. God is going to make it fixed. It is going to be fixed. I'm going to get the exact how I want to say it, but nevertheless, you get it. Things will be repaired. Broken things are going to be repaired in your life, in my life, in our lives. I'm so excited about 2026. Again, create good memories for yourself and for others. Always take time to think about your life. It's your life. And again, I've kind of lived my life in different ways. And I have lived my life where people had a lot of power. Even if it was mental and spiritual, they had a lot of power over me. When I took authority and I took my life back and I took full responsibility, had a whole different life. And I've learned that you have to be responsible. And it's the best thing since sliced bread. Your whole life will change. So don't forget that. And of course, I believe the salt, the spice of life is gratitude. Being grateful, thinking about the good in your life, thinking about what you have instead of what you don't have. Think about what you gained instead of what you lost. You just, if you focus on being grateful and not taking things and people for granted, when I tell you your life will get sweeter than you ever could imagine. So don't forget that. So that's it for this episode. First of many coming up in 2026. Thank you for listening. I hope this message bless you. Let me know some kind of way. Facebook and Instagram at Bad Thought Therapy. Twitter, well, now called X, is Lose Bad Thoughts. Don't forget YouTube. I'm going to post this video on YouTube. I hope this post, because I've had to pause. I'm still a little bit under the weather, and I don't know, what was going on with my technology, but we'll see. We'll see if it's going to post. But anyway, I pray that it will, and I pray that this bless you. Let me know. Take care. Before you go, good people, don't forget to subscribe to Bad Thought Therapy. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.